I'm going to talk about osteopathy and whether it helps. Let me come straight out and say that I don't think osteopathy helps much. If you do it, it might accelerate things a little bit, but not any more than you would get if you were to do some, say, yoga or something. I concluded this after doing many, many years of osteopathy, having been to probably 10 to 20 different osteopaths across Vietnam, the US, Russia, Ukraine, Thailand. And I even thought, osteopathy was really key for a while. I was studying it. I was like studying textbooks about osteopathy at one point. And so I'm going to go deeper today into why and how I concluded this. What's the idea behind osteopathy or traditional medicine? It's actually a doctorate level. You can be a doctor of osteopathy and earn a PhD. Not many people do in the United States these days because generally the only thing you can do get into family medicine, I think, and it's not a very popular thing to do these days, and so not many people do it, and in part because there's not much demand. But that was not always the case. I think if you go back to the origins of osteopathy, it was founded in the late 19th century by a Dr. Andrew Taylor Still, and it was really popular, and it was far more popular than I think a lot of the things that you would do in the hospital today, because it was viewed that this is solving the root cause of illness. Whereas a lot of the things that were considered allopathy, which allopathy is kind of modern day medicine, that stuff was considered treating symptoms or not the root cause. And the core idea is that the body's structure and function are interconnected, and therefore you're trying to put the structure back into the right position. So on this, I think what I believe with Revive and what I talk about with biomechanics is very much aligned with osteopathy. The core basic idea that structure and function are correct. I just think that it's much more about soft tissue rather than moving the actual bones around. I view moving the bones around the way that the osteopath's doing almost useless, and I'll explain a little bit more about the key principles of osteopathy. So it's holistic, so you're not really focusing on specific symptoms. Like it's not like allopathy where like you have a symptom and you take a pill or you do a surgery to solve that symptom. Like it's more holistic, like it's more trying to treat the dysfunction in your body as a whole. The other one is it very much relies on your body's own self-healing system. You go to a session and the healing is supposed to progress, in the days after. And then third is this interconnection of structure and function. So, it's not just about the bones, it's about the joints, the muscles, and how the movement occurs. And this is what they're trying to fix. I would say my deepest dive on osteopathy happened in 2017-18 when I was living in Boston. I had access to some good osteopaths in the Boston area, started seeing them, started researching osteopathy, was seeing an osteopath where I would take out these textbooks off his shelf and I would have to give them back at the next session. And I started reading a lot, and it was like almost PhD level osteopathy books. And then I also found out about this guy, Jim Jackman, who I started writing to, and he was in Missouri. And I'd heard that he was also a dentist, and I think an orthodontist. So he had put together and he had written about this connection between the teeth, occlusion, and osteopathy, which is right in line with where my thinking was at that time. And so I decided, okay, I really got to see this guy. And I made 2 trips out with my family to Missouri from Boston and then spent some time with him and got treated by him and had him look at my kid and learned quite a bit from him because I think his expertise was in newborns, but he also understood this whole dental connection. And he had a slightly different philosophy. What I really took away from him was, that you could feel a baby's head and kind of know what type of malocclusion it was going to have in the future from how the shape of the head and the jaw felt even at that as a newborn. And you could also tell certain things about the structure of the mother. So that were kind of key pieces to the puzzle that helped me later on. But the key thing that I concluded later on, and this is, I didn't fully figure it out until late 21, was that soft tissue. And when I say soft tissue, I am purposely vague. I'm not saying fascia, I'm not saying skin. I'm saying everything that covers that is not muscle and bone. I do not mean muscle and bone. I mean all the kind of outer layers that hold the muscle and bone in position where it is. I don't even know, there's probably other stuff besides just muscle and bone, but my general view is that is the stuff that you need to stretch, in your skull and your jaw and around your body in order to allow the skeleton to come back into position. Therefore, when you're with an osteopath and you're trying to move a bone, unless you're stretching that soft tissue, you can move the bone or, work on a muscle, but it's going to go right back to where the soft tissue has it. Like I like to think of it as kind of a gelatin, right? The soft tissue is like a gelatin. It's covering everything. Everything has a position in that gelatin. And so you can move a bone inside that gelatin, but it's going to go right back to where it was because you haven't changed the gelatin. And that's kind of what I've concluded. And the way to actually change the gelatin is by these simple rules of adding vertical and having a non-locking dental occlusion, meaning your jaw can kind of like move back and forth. So I don't consider osteopathy to be useful against this soft tissue that I'm referring to. I do think if you've had an accident, like a car accident, very useful, right? Because the gelatin already had the bone in the correct position. The bone got knocked out because you had an accident. The osteopath knows how to put that bone back into the right position, and the gelatin never really changed shape from where it was. So, osteopathy is very effective. Where you generally see, and even like osteopaths even say this themselves, is against long-standing issues like the structural issues that I talk about, where the person has not been in the correct structure for a very long time. Osteopathy tends not to be very useful, right? And there's I was reading through these textbooks and like they basically endorse that fact that like they talk a lot about success against accidents and they talk very little about true successes against long-standing issues, which are the types that usually really lead to TMJ and the health issues that I talk about. In the end, I think I stopped seeing osteopaths around 2021 after having spent a lot of money, especially for my kid, because I thought it was going to be key for children. And the way that I ended up fixing my son was just by putting composite hide on his teeth in 2021, and we ended up getting rid of all the issues, and he's doing great. And I consider that all those osteopathy sessions with many different doctors were completely useless, like in hindsight. And I don't recommend wasting your money on that, neither for you or your children, because I don't think it benefited at all. And I think this problem is a lot simpler, and you just have to wear, something like a Revive One, like I said, and you'll make a lot more progress. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.